What's going on, guys? So we have returned from the Arnold Classic UK, an experience with Classic UK, whatever the hell we're calling it nowadays. Either way, the show has happened. I am back in my Surrey home, and today we're going to talk a little bit about my thoughts coming out of the show, how it was run, the future of the Arnold Classic, and the competitors who stepped on that stage. So first of all, let's dive a little bit into the pre-show controversy. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger did pull out of the event, as did Haney. Now, these two pretty much seem to have made their decision as one. The reason being that money for the athletes apparently was not placed within an escrow for payment after the event. Now, some of you might say that Arnold should appear at every Arnold Classic. That is his duty. Well, no. These people are licensing Arnold Schwarzenegger's name. They are utilizing his name as a marketing tool to bring in prospective delegates, to bring in people who are going to step through those doors expecting an Arnold level experience. There is a weight to his name, there is a reputation to his name, and his name will draw in a hell of a lot of crowds, as it did this weekend. The place was packed. It was an absolutely amazing event, and it was very much an Arnold event. Now, whether or not you have to pay Arnold is kind of by the by. The fact of the matter is they went into this knowing that you had to. He does not need to travel the world to every single event. He could have done what he did before and simply phone in an appearance. But it seems like there was a financial issue behind the scenes which caused this not to be possible. The IFBB assured all athletes that payouts were all secured and that the Manions would make sure that money was paid. And Two Bros and the promoters seem to have also secured the fact that they'd met with the Manions, they'd been there in person, they had sorted everything out. So the integrity of the show, in my opinion, was never in question. The nature of the show is still very much up for debate. Is it really an Arnold? Well, going forward, probably not. It seems like they have decided to cut ties with Arnold due to the issues. Or maybe it was the other way around. We simply will never know. I mean, allegedly there was fraud charges previously, which I have mentioned on this channel before, but I was forced to take my video down due to slander accusations, which I did absolutely obligingly because I understand that my video didn't necessarily represent the nuance. However, the fact of the matter remains, there are rumours circling around of fraud charges against the promoters. Then you have the fact that it was originally going to get cancelled and not actually take place in the first place due to these issues rising to public attention. And then there was the question of whether or not Arnold would attend in the few days leading up to the event. And it all, to me, screams of issues behind the scenes that we're not aware of. It shows to me that there's probably something deep-rooted in the nature of this promoter collaboration between Eddie Hall and the Experience With guys that is causing some issues behind the scenes. You know, we've had stuff like Body Power in the past. We've had these big events that seek to showcase the best of British bodybuilding, and the Arnold UK did the best job of it. But without the name, it is quite simply just another British bodybuilding competition, which are welcome with open arms. A pro show in Britain is obviously always going to be an attraction. It's always going to be fun to attend. It's always going to be engaging, and it's always going to attract athletes seeking an Olympia qualification. But an Arnold, that's just a next level above. Moving on, let's talk about the actual competitive bodybuilding side of things. Classic physique for me was difficult. Wesley, when he steps out initially, he quite simply stole the show. There was detail to Wesley. There was dugout lines which attracted the eye. Wesley's shape, in my opinion, is very classic, and clearly that no judge so far has deemed it to be so. I don't really see the issue with Wesley Vissers as being one necessarily of his making. I do see a classic proportion there. I see a classic flow. I see a physique that deserves to be on a classic stage and doesn't necessarily belong in any other division. But I also see the issue with the judges, whereby they're clearly favouring a certain type of physique, more flowing physique, one that doesn't have the jutted out lines that Wesley holds. But that doesn't make it any less classic. It just means that it's not the type of classic the judges are looking for. In my opinion, Wesley could have placed higher. He should have placed higher. He had the conditioning, he had the size, and it was his best package today. Maybe there's an issue here that we're not seeing. Maybe there's something that I didn't see sat in that audience, but Wesley to me seemed to be pushing for first. I thought it was a done deal after the prejudging, but clearly not as he returned for the night show and seemed to lose out. There are a few notable absences in Molnar, Cuba, for example. It seems like Molnar actually seemed to have found his place in 212. We'll get to that in a minute. And Cuba never really tried to make weight. From rumours that I've seen, he was over 20 pounds over his classic cap. That to me doesn't suggest that he was ever gunning for it. Maybe it was a little bit of a hype building tool. Maybe he genuinely believed that he could downsize. But it seems to me that Kuba definitely does have an open structure. He does suit the open division. It's just going to be too much of a task within his competitive career at this stage in the game to scale back, lose the muscle that's needed. That kind of thing will take a couple of years at least and could very well cause damage to his physique in the process. Michael de Bull, what's my opinion on the winner of this year's Arnold Classic? Well, to be honest, I can't really argue. He won last year. He does have an incredible flow, shape and conditioning. But to me, there's something lacking. There's that fullness that he seemed to lack. He always looks a little bit shallow or hollowed out to me. There wasn't quite the same level of pop that Wesley brought to the stage. And that's why I say, although Michael may have beaten him out on conditioning, Wesley beat him out on detail, which is a really important factor in which almost angers me that slight bit more that Wesley didn't at least get the nod of second place. There are a few surprises in this division, including a guy who only just turned pro and then stepped on that stage and had looked incredible. He has a bright future ahead of him and clearly has a classic flow and shape, which is popular with the judges, and most importantly, an absolutely ridiculous waistline. This kind of thing is the structural benefit that will see you go miles in the classic physique division. And clearly, this kid can hit a vacuum. And as we know, that is the only prerequisite to have a classic physique in 2022. So, kid's got a bright future. Let's talk about 212 because we had another British guy here, Dean White, who was competing in this division and had a lot of hype going into the show. Now, in my opinion, Dean has a little bit of work to do from the back. He didn't quite hold up against the other guys, and to my eyes, initially in prejudging, Molnar beat him out, and that was confirmed within the placings. Molnar quite simply had a classic flow which diverged from the rest, and he managed to show out with a full and lean physique, which was worth giving the nod to. There was something about Dean's physique which showed it had more potentially within the division, but definitely didn't live up to it on the day. He clearly has a bright future again ahead of him. To me, to my eyes, Dean really needs to bring up the rear, build the level of muscle that's required to step on the pro stage, and that's absolutely fine because he had a very short transition between his amateur and his pro card win through to this pro stage, and to be honest, it's understandable. I think it was a great first showing, incredible. The 212 division was stacked this year. All it takes is for him to take one long extended off season, build that muscle that's required and come back with the same package again in order to look to be placing within that top 3. And now what you've all been waiting for, open bodybuilding. What happened on that stage? Well, there was a lot of controversy, and I've got to admit I wasn't actually in the room for the prejudging, but I'm going to give my take from seeing the footage that all of you have seen and giving my opinion on what was shown in the 4K footage post-event. In my opinion, yes, Andrew Jack was off. Not significantly more so than he was at Texas, but he was off nonetheless condition-wise. I would say this is 80-85% of what Andrew is capable of. I mean, I can't say that for certain. Maybe this is all he's capable of, but it's clear to me that he knows what he can get away with that shape, that structure, that symmetry, that flow, and he knows that he's got enough muscle to be able to carry a pro win without conditioning being 100%. It makes sense to wait until the Olympia. It's clear that that is his strategy, and hopefully he does bring it on the day. Otherwise, all in all, even with 3 pro wins, he will still be seen as a slight disappointment if he doesn't turn up to that show grainy and conditioned. In my opinion, Patrick did suffer from the lack of exposure pre-event. Patrick brought an incredible physique which sort of mirrored Andrew in many ways, that fullness, that bubbly muscle. However, he didn't really get the level of exposure leading up to the show. So although people said this person should have placed higher, this person should have placed higher, nobody could really discredit Patrick's placing. It's just that they weren't particularly fans. And this is a big part of bodybuilding that you need to remember, that it's a subjective sport. There isn't necessarily an objective winner. It's always down to public opinion and judge versus judge's opinion. And the judges on the day decided to give Patrick the nod, and truth of the matter is nobody can argue with that. Patrick bought a great package, he deserved his placing. It's simply the case that he's not got the name that draws in the crowds quite the same as the guys above or below him. Now I want to talk about 2 guys, both of them British, both of them shocked the audience on that day. First of all, let's talk about James Hollingshead, the guy who everybody wanted to see win, clearly even the judges. James, in my opinion, brought a great mixture of fullness and conditioning. James beat out a lot of the guys on that stage from the rear, even with his narrow structure. And in my opinion, this year saw James realise overcoming genetics with discipline and hard work. James has learnt his physique. He is working with somebody who knows his physique almost as well as he does in the form of Jordan Peters, and it showed on that stage. Could he been drier? Could he been crispier, better conditioned? Absolutely, 100% yes. He probably had another 10% in the tank conditioning-wise. The question is whether he was willing to sacrifice it, because this was a calculated decision to come in more full, and in my opinion, it was a good one. James already has a gnarly look to him. He doesn't necessarily need to be bone dry shredded when stepping on stage with people like Andrew in order to compete. If anything, he needs to retain as much muscle as possible to overcome his structural flaws. Otherwise, if he allows his muscle to deflate and look stringy, it's going to emphasize those even more against somebody as structurally impressive as Andrew. James truly outdid himself. He proved his fans right and proved a lot of people wrong. He still has improvement to make, and is he yet a top call-out Olympian? I'm not sure. I still think that his structural issues will be a problem for him. I think when he's not on British turf, things might go differently, but I am a massive fan of James, and this is not to detract from him at all. I love James. He's one of my favourite bodybuilders, full stop. Does that mean that objectively speaking, he's got a first call-out Olympia physique? No. Could he one day? I think absolutely yes. I think he could be in that top 6 conversation, but it's whether or not he's willing to take it to the level that he needs to in order to achieve that. He's definitely made improvements. There are still some more improvements to make, very slight ones, and it's whether or not he's truly in love with the sport anymore in order to see them realised. I get the feeling from James that his step away from bodybuilding could be imminent at any moment. He's a man of many passions and a man who isn't 100% committed into this game as his only love. And part of me thinks that may be the only way to succeed here. But part of me also wants to be proven wrong. And I love seeing James being able to balance his life and bodybuilding and seem to realise an amazing mix of leisure and work and play, and to be able to achieve what he's doing while still doing other things which he loves. I hope to see him continue down this path, see what he can do on his own with the help of Jordan Peters, and maybe, just maybe, he'll surprise me yet. The second big surprise of the show is Jamie Johal. Jamie is a giant, hence the name. Jamie came in conditioned, Jamie came in full, Jamie came in complete, and Jamie came in heavily muscled. For a tall man, this is not an easily accomplished job, and I am more than impressed with what he brought to the stage. A guy like that, with that kind of size, that kind of sheer stage presence, could easily be talking first call out one day. Now again, with a taller athlete, there is again structural issues in the way. Will he ever achieve it? I don't know, but the package he brought was impressive, it was improved, and not enough people are talking about it. To achieve what he has achieved is monumental. To achieve what he's going to achieve may just be groundbreaking, but we're yet to see it. But I'm excited for Jamie's future, and I think full due respect for him to come in fairly quiet and disrupt the show and making a lot of people turn their head in the process. Now let's talk about Martin. Martin Fitzwater. I like Martin's physique. I think Martin's done amazing things. Martin is young. Martin definitely has first call out Mr. Olympia potential. How maybe even top 3. But his attitude is last call out level. Martin posted an image of Andrew jacked, saying they looked like a bag of milk. Now granted, Andrew was off, but to me this just perpetuates the petulant behaviour from Martin post-show. He's done this multiple times now. He doesn't seem to take losing well. He is a sore loser. And it's a shame really, because I was just coming around to being a fan of his. I understand his fans' frustration of his placings. I understand his frustration, but there's no reason to be unsportsmanlike and come out and hit out after a show. Every single person knows that when you are defeated, you bow your head, you accept the winner, you congratulate them, you move on, you improve, you come back better, and you comment about your damn self. You don't go out there at every single show you show up at claiming some form of bias or claiming that you were robbed or calling out other competitors, because the fact of the matter is they beat you. If they beat you looking like a bag of milk, then that's your problem. I find it really hard when competitors have this kind of attitude, because there seems to be no onus on themselves, no self-reflection, no stoic attitude of saying, right, okay, maybe there were other things at play here, but what can I control? You can't control politics. If you believe that politics is the problem, then calling it out is only going to cause more divisions between you and the IFBB. Stop, reflect, and take it like a man. I would love to see Martin do well. I think he's got a brilliant physique, it's complete, and he does need a bit more muscle, but I think that he'll realise it. The big question is whether or not his attitude can upgrade at the same level as his physique. I want to talk briefly about Mark Hector because I left him off my previous video. Mark made incredible improvements. He looked great. He still needs to bring up the wheels. He has got a little bit of work to do on the balance and flow of his physique, but overall it is a night and day comparison to the last time he stepped on stage. And I'm really glad to see him do so well comparatively compared to the fact that realistically he had no track record to claim he was going to be in the top 3 of this show. You know, James or Andrew or Martin, I can see, had that conversation of top 3, but nobody was really too begrudging at the fact that Mark placed outside of that. It was understandable, regrettable, but hey, he's got work to do and he can come back knowing that he will be fighting for a pro win within the next 12 months. Now I want to talk about the experience briefly. The experience of the Arnold was incredible. There was lots going on. There were some great people there. I met some amazing, people. I managed to finally meet Josh Bridgman in person. Really sound guy. We were both far too high to actually make a decent conversation. Saw a lot of guys that I know in the industry, caught up on a lot of booths, checked out a lot of new sports, and overall, as I said, it was an Arnold experience to remember, and I would love to go again in 2023 if it's still the Arnold UK. It was my first pro bodybuilding show in person. It was my first time seeing competitors on that stage, and it was a wake-up call and an inspiration. It didn't make me think, oh shit, I'm out of my depth. It made me think, oh shit, I want to be on that stage. And that's the feeling that any true bodybuilding enthusiast should get coming out of one of those events. I was so grateful to meet a couple of you as well, really unexpected from my point of view. I was there to see some legends of the sport, to just experience my first bodybuilding show, and to be able to know that you guys actually felt a need to take the time out of your day there with so many more important people. It really humbling, and I'm so grateful. Please do, if you ever see me and you want to stop and chat, just do, because I'm nobody, but I really enjoy feeding off the energy of you, hearing about your stories, and it inspires me as much as anything else. So thank you so much for making the time, and it really does mean the world to me. I think the Arnold UK has a potential future. I think the promoter is a potential question mark. Hopefully the issues are resolved and they can carry on, because with all the controversy put aside, it was an Arnold experience. And for everything that I've said, for all the accusations, for all the legal troubles that are potentially at play, allegedly, I still believe that this could be a perfect match. I just think that it needs to realise its potential, and certain people need to put their pride out of the way to secure the Arnold name for 2023. Classic Physique was incredible, and Wesley truly did show up, and even with a shallower lineup, it was still a fierce competition with Michael and Wesley battling it out, which made me slightly surprised that they weren't 1 and 2. 212 was exciting, and I was glad to see my first 212 in person, and it was a show to remember. Dean has potential, he's yet to realise it, but you could already see on that stage that he was hungry for more, hungry to come out and be in that top 3. Peter, in my opinion, has a potential in 212. Yes, he is classic, but what's wrong with bringing a little bit of classic to the 212 division? It would be a shame not to have him within the sport, but I don't think that he's going to be able to stay within classic all that much longer. Open was incredible. Did I believe that Andrew deserved his win? Yes. Yes, I did. If anyone was going to take it away from him, in my opinion, it would have been James Hollingshead, as an opinion about which type of physique they prefer, the fuller, bigger look, or the denser, more grainy look. That didn't happen. The judges made a choice, and in my opinion, it's hard to deny a genetic phenom like Andrew, unless James was maybe 2% more shredded, but kept exactly the same level of fullness, which just didn't happen on the day. I thought that Andrew deserved his win. Andrew, is hard to argue, deserved every win this season, and Andrew arguably will be a well-deserved top 3 competitor at the Olympia in the next year or so, if not this year. James showed up and made England proud, as did Jamie, and as I've said before, it's a great time to be a part of British bodybuilding, and I'm excited for the future. For now, I've got to go to my own event over the next 2 days, so I'll see you in the next one.